What's going on, everybody? I'm Matt Harmon. Welcome to the Yahoo Fantasy Forecast, and it is a hell of a day to talk ball. Oh, it truly is a hell of a day to talk ball. And joining me to do just that is our guy, Ray Garvin. Ray, what's going on, buddy?
Matt, let's get it, baby. I am excited. I'm excited to be back, excited to talk wide receiver with you, and excited that all the people here are tapping in. And this is going to be a fun show, man. It's going to be a fun show.
It is going to be a fun show. It is going to be a packed show because, as Ray just mentioned, we continue position preview week here by talking through the wide receiver position, which, Ray, usually I would say is my position. But no, it's our position, man. We are going to combine our two levels, our two methods of evaluating this, just packed position here to try to break down the entire board, the entire 2025 wide receiver landscape. So I'm really looking forward to that. But first, a big announcement, as I've been talking about on the show. You love this podcast, of course. You might be lukewarm on me, but you love this podcast, and you definitely love Justin Boone. You definitely love Scott Pianowski and Nate Tice. And big freaking news, baby. We are bringing the entire Yahoo Fantasy crew to Las Vegas in a couple of weeks for Yahoo Fantasy kickoff weekend on Friday, August 22nd and Saturday, August 23rd at the Venetian Resort in Las Vegas from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. on both nights. You can catch me, Boone, Scott, Nate Tice, the whole crew at the Yahoo Sportsbook inside the Venetian. We're going to have a meet and greet, fantasy Q&A, and on Saturday night, we are going to share our 10 biggest pieces of draft advice before the season starts. You are not going to want to miss that. Scott in Vegas giving draft advice that he's just going to be in peak form, ladies and gentlemen. So again, that is Friday, August 22nd and Saturday, August 23rd, 5 p.m. Pacific at the Yahoo Sportsbook inside the Venetian Resort, Las Vegas. Also, I buried the lead. It's free, okay? It's totally free. $0 for you, the people. So come on by and talk some fantasy football with us. We're going to talk some fantasy football right now, Ray. We are going to get into the wide receiver position preview. We're going to go all through the board here. Here's the structure of the show. First segment, elite players of position, the big three, and your wide receiver one candidates for the year. Second segment, ideal good wide receiver twos, a really flat tier to me, like kind of a curious range. The area of the draft where you really feel the depth, rounds 5 to 8. And then the third segment, we're going to go sleepers, late round gems, some of the volatile players of the position. We got a lot to talk through here, so let's waste no more time, Ray. Let's get into it. Let's talk the big three. We're going to go by Yahoo ADP in this one. These top three guys, the position, Ray, it is Ja'Marr Chase, who is the consensus wide receiver one. He's my wide receiver one this year. His ADP right now in Yahoo leagues is 1.5. So sometimes first, sometimes seconds, but never third. Justin Jefferson, he's in this group as well. He's actually my wide receiver 3, but he's the consensus wide receiver 2. And CeeDee Lamb, who is my wide receiver 2, consensus wide receiver 3. So we know who these guys are, Ray. We know they're good at football. How do you like these three guys heading into this year?
Yeah, I think they're all three deserving of that elite tier, man. When you look at just what they bring to the table each and every rep, how their teams prioritize them in the offense, the type of offense that each one of these players sort of lives in, this is conducive for that extremely high-end outcome range for Ja'Marr Chase in Cincinnati, CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott. And then Justin Jefferson is the one, I think, if we were going to have some longer depth discussion about it, it's his ranking, right? Some people would be like, oh, man, you're tripping to have him number 3. I actually have him 4th for me. He's still one of the elite tier wide receivers. But the situation for Justin Jefferson has little to do with how good he is, and it has little to do with how good I think he's going to be in the long run, or more importantly, the quarterback, J.J. McCarthy. But it is a first-year quarterback starting in the NFL. And when you've got Justin Jefferson on this offense, you have a player like Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson, and the investment that they've made up front, which suggests they're probably going to try to run the ball, take some pressure off of second-year quarterback but first-year starter, J.J. McCarthy. It's not a matter of Justin Jefferson can do it. I think he will and can be one of those elite receivers. But if it were me, I would have him just one spot lower than another player. But looking at CD, getting Dak Prescott back, Ja'Marr Chase, I can argue Matt, that Cincinnati underutilizes Jamar Chase. There's more meat left on that bone if he were to get a larger slice of Cincinnati's pie. The problem is they've got T. Higgins, but give Jamar Chase a 30% target share and watch how much better he could be. Those are the top three guys, maybe minus a player.
I'm excited to hear about who that player is very shortly. We're going to get into that. Yeah, last year, just to go back to Justin Jefferson, the Vikings were 16th in overall pass rate. I think there's a chance that comes down a little bit. As you mentioned, they traded for Jordan Mason, gave him a contract. They added to that interior of the offensive line. They've really been signaling that they want to get more rushing efficiency out of this offense. I think they just want to straight up run the football more. And also when you look at the passing game as well, the Vikings do so much to get Justin Jefferson open against really difficult coverage down the football field. They want to get those shots. And last year, the Vikings were very explosive play kind of inflated. Their 12.4% explosive play rate was 6th in the NFL. They were behind the Ravens, the Lions, the Packers, the Bucks, the Falcons, oddly enough. That'll be interesting with Michael Penix under center, whether that goes up, actually. But yeah, so they were 6th in explosive play rate. That's really, they lived on that explosive play. I think they want to get more like singles and doubles in this offense, which probably is still good for Jefferson. Like if you're hitting a double single to somebody, you're feeding one of these players layups. It's probably still Justin Jefferson. But again, that's some of these factors, in addition to the fact that, JJ McCarthy is a unknown. That's just why I've broken the tie kind of in favor of CeeDee Lamb there in an offense that I think is going to push to lead the NFL in pass attempts, is a proven player, the proven quarterback. Again, that's why I've just given the slight bump to CeeDee Lamb over Justin Jefferson. Before we transition away from this group, honestly, there's another point I'm going to make before we get there. But my big question about these three, because we kind of know who these guys are, I don't think we have any big concerns. How are you ranking these guys from an overall perspective when we look at the top three running backs, which are Bijan, Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs? Are you taking these receivers ahead of any of those guys? Are you ranking the running backs ahead of them? Because I think we agree they're first-round picks, but when you're stacking the rest of the first round, where do they end up for you?
I'll say this. Jamar Chase is my one-on-one, all formats. Okay. It doesn't matter. 7 days a week, even if there's an 8th day, it's Jamar Chase. I keep saying it, Matt. There's more upside in Jamar Chase. I think he is fully capable of that elusive. We've seen players get close to 2,000 yards. You just look at the percentage of his team's pie versus some other players. You give him 30% of this. You get him top 5 in the NFL in air yards. Get him. There is more fantasy upside, as crazy as it sounds, in Jamar Chase. And you know what? He's got the damn quarterback to do it. So Jamar Chase, I'm taking him over anybody and everybody. And I can make a strong case this year for another player, Matt, but he ain't up yet, so I can't bring him up. So yeah, Jamar Chase over the running backs. But after that, I could take Saquon Barkley or Bijan 2-3 and then take another receiver.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you say like he has more fantasy upside, because if you just look at the scoring from last year, 339.5 total half PPR points. Jefferson was number 2, 265.98. So he was already lapping the field last year. Ray is saying there's even more meat on the bone. I agree with you. For me, I have it Jamar Chase 1 overall, and then I do have the 3 running backs, Bijan, Saquon, Jahmyr Gibbs, then CeeDee, then Justin Jefferson, then one more guy who is in my first tier of wide receivers. I didn't group him here because he's not this way in ADP, but I'm curious to see if we've landed on the same guy here or not. So again, I agree with you that Jamar Chase is number 1. I would take him there. But then it is the running backs. My last point on this group before we move away, because it dovetails with your point about Jamar Chase, and a big part of why he exploded last year from a fantasy standpoint is, number 1, he's good at football, obviously. But the Bengals really made a concerted effort to move him around the formation, career high snaps in the slot. Jacob Gibbs pointed this out, that number of Jamar Chase's routes in motion pre-snap by season, 9 in his rookie year, 20 in 2022, 50 in 2023, and then 100 last year in 2024. So every year he's like doubling what he does in motion. So playing more spots, moving around the field, not just being that tethered X receiver like he was in his rookie season. That's how you get an elite fantasy season. So I think that's important to keep in mind as we move to the next group here, like who can be somebody that has that this year. So this next group, these are just ideal wide receiver ones. These guys all have late first round to second round ADP. Starts off with Nico Collins, Yahoo ADP 10, Amon-Ra St. Brown 11th overall, Puka Nacua 12th overall, Malik Neighbors 13th, Brian Thomas Jr. 16th, Drake London 20th, AJ Brown 21, and Ladd McConkey number 23. So Ray, that's how the ADP kind of groups it out there. I am very curious, who's the guy in this group that you think is actually a tier 1 receiver ahead of Justin Jefferson this year? I'm curious if it's the same guy as me.
All right, and we have not done any kind of pre-show prep, so my pick is totally my pick and solely my pick alone. But I am going to a year 2 wide receiver out of New York. Malik Neighbors is the guy. For me, if I'm going to put somebody in that upper echelon, in that tier, and I know that a lot of people sit back and say it's just Russell Wilson, he is 100 times better than the quarterback room that was in New York last year. And you're talking about a rookie season with 155 targets, almost 1,300 yards and 12 touchdowns, and 8 touchdowns, and they've done little to nothing to improve that wide receiver core. The thing that has improved is the quarterback play. When I'm looking at as far as usage amongst their team, there was no player in the NFL who was utilized more from a percentage basis on their offense than Malik Neighbors as a rookie. This kid was trying to figure it out on the fly with Danny DeVito, with Daniel Jones, with just a misfit cast of quarterbacks. And now you do get a quarterback who's got tons of NFL experience. He's a former Super Bowl champ. Russell Wilson for Malik Neighbors is going to do wonders. His opportunity in this offense, it's Malik Neighbors and nobody else. And if they get more out of their ground game to help the play action out, the sky is the absolute limit for Malik Neighbors. How he was utilized in this offense, my wide receiver 3 going into 2025.
I love it. It's a bold and yet not bold in a way, because he is talented enough to get there. There's no question about it. So last 2 seasons, Ray, the guys who have had 30% of their team's targets in 2023, it was Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, and AJ Brown. Actually, if you go back to the 2022 season, some of the same names there. Devontae Adams again with the Raiders did it. Tyreek Hill did it with the Miami Dolphins. Malik Neighbors did it last year. So in terms of like team target share, he's already in that like not just alpha range, but I don't know, whatever the super alpha tier is. And in addition to the role, like some of the stuff from a target perspective, he already got that kind of like role catering that I'm talking about in terms of the guys that were our elite players of the position, where they're not just out there running ISO routes. He only took 57.1% of the routes or snaps I charted him for on the line of scrimmage. The Giants did a ton of role catering for him, and this is a guy that could just go out there and run X receiver every single snap, but the team is smart, at least in this one thing, and they don't ask him to do it. So I think if he is going to make this jump, it does require Russell Wilson to last a lot of the season. I'm a little bit skeptical of that, but Russell Wilson, for all of his flaws last year, 72 yards per game on go routes and post routes. Ray, I bet you cannot like come up with 5 plays last year where Malik Neighbors was getting the ball on go routes and post routes, because Danny Dimes cannot throw those anymore.
No.
Russ can at least still do that. So how confident are you in order for him to make this jump into the elite tier that he can that he can really, Russ can stay under center to maximize him over the course of the season?
I've got zero fear. He was number 1 in expected fantasy points per game at the position last year. Like, it's truly the slice of his pie. That's so important. When you're looking at this offense, he commands so much of it. If Russell Wilson is there for half the season and then they've got to go to Jackson Dart, it's going to Malik Neighbors. And this is a team that defensively, they will put their offense in some better scoring positions because they should have a ferocious front 4. But I am confident enough in this offense, sans Daniel Jones, that between Russell Wilson and, if heaven forbid Jackson Dart has to play, that the ball is going to number 1, Malik Neighbors. And if Malik Neighbors is out there, there may not be a player in the NFL getting more of their offense than number 1. It's as simple as that. Number 1 in expected fantasy points per game last year as a rookie, figuring it out with Daniel Jones.
Yeah, overall, I have Malik Neighbors ranked 11th. So I'm very much in on him as a first round fantasy pick this year. Somebody that I would take over some of the names that are sort of ranked higher, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua. Certainly with Puka, it's the Matthew Stafford situation. He's in that immortal tube, whatever that thing is at Rams practice. I would certainly bump Puka up if we knew Stafford was going to be available for week 1. But I mean, dude, you know how it is. Sometimes when you got a bad back, someday you just wake up and that thing's feeling worse. And like, who's to say week 8, week 9, that thing's feeling worse. So that's just where it is with Puka right now. But this is a really appealing tier overall. My guy in this tier that I think I think actually belongs in the next group up is Nico Collins, who I have wide receiver 4 overall. Nico Collins is an elite tier NFL receiver, an elite press man beater. He leads the NFL in yards per route run over the last 2 years. And he is someone, Ray, that unlike the guys, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, who we just talked about, this is a guy that does run out every snap and plays outside on the line of scrimmage. Like he just runs out at X receiver, the hardest, like most difficult routes, everything like that, the hardest position to play among the wideouts. And he's still the most efficient receiver on a per route basis over the last 2 years. So what if Nick Caley coming in here from that Sean McVay offense, the last few years where he's been there, he has more of a Patriots background, but he's spent the last few years with the Rams where they do so much to get Puka Nacua free. They did so much in terms of the big slot stuff with Cooper Kupp. Now, I don't think that Nico Collins is going to turn into a Cooper Kupp type player, but what if he, just like Jamar Chase last year, his routes in motion jacks up? He is a guy that takes, instead of fewer than 20, maybe like 35 to 40 snaps from the slot, more snaps off the line, again, in motion, because now they have Jaden Higgins, who I think probably should be like a flanker slot type, but he will take some X receiver snaps. If that's the case, Nico Collins tethered to a highly accurate quarterback who should bounce back with the better protection plan. I didn't say offensive line talent, better protection plan in front of him this year. I think wide receiver 1 overall is in the range of outcomes for Nico Collins. I have him ranked 7th this year among all positions.
Nico's right there, man. I mean, his high-end range of outcome, when I'm looking at our Trinity model, it's right there with Malik Neighbors. High-end outcome, 23 points per game, because he's so efficient with what he gets. And then when you're looking at Houston's offense right now, love what Jaden Higgins can become down the line. Christian Kirk is really good in the slot. And right now, Joe Mixon is injured. It's CJ Stroud to Nico Collins. This is year 3 Stroud. He's probably got a lot to prove out there. Nico Collins wants his deal. He got a deal a few years ago. He wants to go out there and continue to perform and show well too. Like, this offense is going to flow through number 12. And he does all the good stuff you want in fantasy, Matt. Yeah. It's not cheap. It's not screen routes every play. He is going downfield, post, 9 routes, deep digs. He's moving the chains with every single reception. Nico, it could be the second quarter and he has 1 catch, and before you know it, boom, 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 he's got 72 yards and a touchdown, just all downfield work. And I just don't believe that the combination of Dalton Schultz, Jaden Higgins, or Christian Kirk are going to pull anything away from Nico Collins. There's no Diggs. There's no Tank Dell. It is all Nico Collins in 2025.
Yeah, he's just long, tall, strong, fast, 6'4", 220, every bit of it. I've stood next to him. That is a big human being. And he also might be the best route runner in terms of technique in the intermediate area of the field. It's insane. It's just an insane player. So really in on Nico Collins. If you could give me one other guy that like the Trinity is high on from this area, and I do kind of want you to put Amon-Ra St. Brown to the side, just if that was going to be your answer, just because he's so easy. Like he's just Mr. Consistent, the whole deal. So one other guy from this area that maybe the Trinity thinks could maybe make
it's
that
Drake
leap
London
to the elite tier. Okay, love it. I was hoping it was going to be Drake London.
It's Drake London. It's Drake London. I mean, he's already shown an ability to command targets in that offense, even when he wasn't producing his first 2 years. He got a situation change to some degree last year. Kirk Cousins and the combination of Michael Penix were an upgrade of what he had to deal with. But you're talking about a player who is walking into a situation. Anytime you have the capability, Matt, 150 plus targets in an offense, and we all think that this quarterback, Michael Penix, is going to be a significant upgrade. Darnell Mooney is injured right now. We'll see what Kyle Pitts can bring to the table. But you're talking about to a lesser degree, because I think there's some more talent around Drake London to a degree than what Nico has. He's not going to be in his prime situation as Nico. To me, it is Nico Collins, the 1, 2, and the 3 in that offense. But Drake London should be pretty damn close. So if there's one of those guys that I think has the opportunity in the slice of his offense to ascend to that level, is Drake London.
Yeah, I have Drake London 10th overall, so I was hoping you were gonna say that. He's right there with Malik Neighbors to me as guys you could take in the first round. Last thing before we toss to break here, Ray, I want to, and people know my take on Drake London. People know my take on this next player, Ladd McConkey. Do you think Ladd McConkey, after the injury to Rashawn Slater, the signing of Keenan Allen, who we'll talk about much later this show, do you think he still belongs in this tier, or is he the top of the next tier to you?
Anybody who's been following my content knows I love Ladd McConkey. We got a nickname. We call him Ladarius McConkey. He's that nasty. He's that cold. So I'm a big Ladd McConkey fan. I'm a little concerned, man. I'm a little concerned with some of I know it's small sample size, but some of the data surrounding that offensive front with Herbert, they got a lot of time to figure it out. And I also think Keenan Allen is a bit of a problem. He is. And it doesn't mean Keenan Allen is the same guy that was getting those all-pro nods years ago, but he's a problem. He is going to command some of this offense. A lot of that you wanted to sort of primarily flow through Ladd McConkey because you could still be a dominant player in the slot. But bringing in Keenan Allen, their investment in Omarion Hampton, and then some of the injuries up front, I think he belongs in the next tier as much as I love Ladd.
Yeah, I still want to keep him in this. That is an incredible comment.
They know. They know.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's all I'll say about that. Ladd, I think I still keep him in this tier. I just maybe have docked him from, 18th overall, 17th overall to maybe like closer to somewhere in the 20 to 24 range. So
okay.
I think still a second round pick, still firmly in this tier, but I'm hearing the concerns. I'm with you that I think you got to give him a little bit of a dock. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk through the most curious range of the draft at the wide receiver position, and we're going to need Ray's help to figure this out because I have struggled with it all year. We're going to discuss the rounds 3 to 4 wide receivers right after this quick break. All right, we are back. I cannot wait to talk through the most curious range of the wide receiver draft board this year. This is rounds 3 to 4, 29th to 50th overall in Yahoo ADP. Ray, I can't wait to break this group down with you. This group of players, T. Higgins, 29th overall, Tyreek Hill, 34th overall, Jackson Smith and Jigba 37th. Mike Evans right in the same sort of range there. Garrett Wilson 38th overall. Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Marvin Harrison Jr., DK Metcalf to round it out there at 50th overall. Ray, I have not been drafting much wide receivers in this range here, man. We'll talk through some of the specific players, but first, just when you look at this group compared to sort of the overall players that are going here, quarterbacks, tight ends, some running backs, have you been targeting wide receivers in this range very much?
I mean, this is the wide receiver range right here that you just need a therapy session. You just need to sit down with a good buddy and just talk through every last one of the players in this range because, Matt, you look at it, it can go incredibly well or really, really bad for a third-round pick in this range of wide receivers. So I think depending on how you're feeling that day, the vibes when you wake up and you click that draft room, I think you might be looking for some different positions, some quarterbacks, maybe if a tight end is falling through the cracks. And that's not to knock the players in this range because I wrote an article that's live right now, risky players to gamble on. And there are two players in this range that can absolutely win you a season, win you a week, win you a league. And there's a couple of them that you'll be looking at the end of the season like, why on earth? I knew good and damn well I should not have made that pick in the third round. It's a very interesting range of wide receiver.
Yeah, and again, when it's looking at the overall players like that go around here because it's not that I dislike some of the bets in this range, and we'll talk through some of the guys that I actually do like. I mean, shoot, there's going to be some hits here, no question about it. But when you're stacking these guys up against the elite quarterbacks, for sure, I just often find myself defaulting to which one of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Jaden Daniels has slipped to me. That's who I want to take in the third round. That I want to come away in the third. And I just have, even over the weekend, man, at the Expo, I took Jaden Daniels because I was faced with a lot of these guys versus him. I much prefer Jaden Daniels.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I wouldn't blame anybody else for making that pick either. You're sitting there and you know what? Instead of Marv, I'm just going to lock up the onesie Trey McBride. I'm taking him right there. So I think we can tell a story, Matt, for every one of these receivers to be incredible in fantasy football this year, have some explosive weeks, help you win a league. But I think this is a range where a lot of people are just kind of like, I would avoid. I just don't, unless you got strong conviction, give me one, but I definitely don't want 2 or 3 out of this range,
Okay, so tell me the story on one of them because it is a very different range. There's sort of like T. Higgins is sort of in his own kind of bucket there in terms of career arc, and I guess maybe Metcalf, so maybe they're the sandwich guys, but the rest of them, it's a lot of young guys, second-year players, Marvin Harrison, third-year JSN, and then it's a bunch of dudes we've seen for a minute now, Mike Evans, Adams, McLaurin. So if you like one or two guys from this range that you actually like taking, if you're forced into it because the board is that way, who's maybe someone from this group that you think could actually pop? Because someone will.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking right there. And he may be the riskiest of them all. But Tyreek Hill right there in Miami. And I know he is a controversial player to talk about right now. There's all kind of early speculation and people talking he could be on the move. But we're 1 year removed from Tyreek Hill being voted on by his peers as the number 1 overall player in the NFL, a player that we thought could push for 2,000 yards in a season, had 1799 in that year. And let's just be honest, the entire Miami Dolphins offense last year, outside of Devon Achane getting targeted like crazy and Jonnu Smith, who is no longer there, underperformed in 2024. For Tyreek Hill had his lowest fantasy output since his rookie season in Kansas City last year for Miami. I'm not worried about anybody else in this offense. If he is out there and Tua Tagovailoa is healthy, this is a player who is absolutely capable of not just exceeding his draft capital right now in the third round, but being a true guy that's finished as one of those upper echelon receivers. He can still do it. It's risky as hell. I'm not telling anybody it's guaranteed to happen, but if there's a guy in there that can do it and is probably going to get the opportunity to do it, if he's on Miami, it's scary, but Tyreek Hill could do it, man.
God, he's like the guy I want to take the least in this range because
but talk about it. Why not? Talk about it. Talk about it, Matt. Talk about it.
Okay, so first of all, like I say this all the time. The thing I am least confident in forecasting is exactly how declines are going to go, especially with reception perception at the wide receiver position, because sometimes, Ray, you see it with a guy that he starts to decline and then the next thing is right off the cliff. Sometimes you see guys just take that steady decline. I think, again, Keenan Allen is one of these guys that he's not the same player that he used to be, but he's certainly not off the cliff just yet. He's still, I think, a useful player of a passing game. So Tyreek Hill definitely started to decline last year on an individual standpoint. Now, I know there was the wrist stuff. Immediately you get the response, well, hey, maybe he just wasn't all the way locked in. I don't love that as an excuse ever for any player, by the way. Like, who's to say he's fully locked in this year? You know, he's kind of beefing with the quarterback. He's talking about who should be in at the goal line. Mike McDaniel puts Jalen Wright in at the goal line in the damn preseason game.
Right.
Immediately stuffed. He's like, see, Tyreek, I know what I'm talking about here. Anyways, don't love that part of it. That's like sort of the more intangible thing. But I also one thing I am confident in saying, usually once a guy starts to decline, he's in his 30s like that, the next thing isn't right back up to the elite form. You know what I'm saying? So I just think when I look at this range of players, I think if somebody's going to beat us here, Ray, like I think there could be some good picks here. You know, like Mike Evans is, I think, a guy that like, yeah, you take him at wide receiver 15 or 14, something like that. He maybe finishes as wide receiver 12, but does he like explode, really exceed the ADP? Not necessarily. But if I was going to bet on one of these guys in this range, I think it would be on like a Jackson Smith and Jigba, a Marvin Harrison, a Garrett Wilson, guys who should be kind of like entering or squarely in the prime of their careers. But those guys have serious, like those guys have serious ecosystem, quarterback deployment questions, everything like that.
It's so funny because if I were to pick another one, it'd be the other old guy, Devontae Adams. If I were going to pick another one, and but here's the thing. It should be JSN. You're looking at Seattle's offense. It's Cooper Kupp. You talk about a decline. That he has declined, right? It should be Jackson Smith and Jigba. And I don't want to put anything on Sam Darnold, but that's again what we're relying on is a brand new situation and opportunity in Seattle. I love JSN, and I hope he smashes. I actually think he's going to be really good this year as well. But this is, to me, it's almost just as ambiguous from an offense that I really don't know what I'm going to get from Sam Darnold in this offensive coordinator. As crazy as Tyreek is, I have a strong sense of what Miami's probably going to do here because defensively, they're probably not going to be very good. Mike McDaniel feel like he's fighting for his job. It's going to be air it out to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, and you're going to live and die with that. And Devon Achane, 190-pound running back. But I like JSN too, man. I do.
Yeah, see, this is where I'm at, where I think that if I'm buying into the Miami Dolphins offense, I want to do it with the guy that's going later, and I'll just take Jalen Waddle if I think Miami can bounce back. But we'll get to that section. So, like I said, it's definitely a group where I haven't been taking too many wide receivers, but the area where I am taking off a lot of wide receivers is the next tier of players. And this is, Ray, where I really think you feel what I've been talking about for a while here, which is that we are squarely in like the golden age of wide receiver in the NFL, because this is the area where there's a lot of guys sort of in the prime of their careers, guys that are entering the prime, and this is where you just really feel the depth. So to me, I want to strike twice, if not three times in this rounds 5 to 8 range, 50 to 90 overall. Some of the names: Devontae Smith, Cortland Sutton, George Pickens, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, Zay Flowers, Jalen Waddle, Rashee Rice, obviously suspension stuff there, Jamison Williams, Calvin Ridley, Tedero McMillan, Travis Hunter, Chris Olave, Roma Dunze, Ray. There's a lot of names I like here. And again, I want to just this is why I want to take those running backs early so that I can maybe get 2 to 3 guys here.
Listen, we might have been in disagreement with those old guys, but we are going to be in lockstep right here, Matt, because I could just George Pickens, my goodness. I'm telling you, Matt, I know you're on board with me. You're not high enough. I don't think we're high enough on what George Pickens is going to bring to the table this year for the Dallas Cowboys. Sign me up on George Pickens. I think he is walking into a situation where I don't want to speak too crazy here, but why can't this be an NFC East version of what Cincinnati has with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins from a usage standpoint, how George Pickens going to be deployed? Like, you know what he's going to be asked to do in Dallas. There's no question how they're going to use him, and it fits Dak Prescott's skill set to a T. Him and CeeDee Lamb, I mean, they pair together like peanut butter and jelly, like peanut butter and chocolate. This is a combination that is going to work in Dallas, and it's going to bear fruit for a very consolidated offense. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Jake Ferguson. Those are your top three pass catchers in Dallas, and all three of them, for their position and the range in which they're being drafted, have very high-end outcomes. I love this range of receiver, and we're just getting started.
Yeah, talk about a volatile dude there, George Pickens. So I don't feel totally, cozy, comfortable saying that this is the guy I want in every single draft. But that's exactly what I said in my draft day blueprint piece, that he's the guy I want in every single draft. Because Ray, even after all of us talking about, how much George Pickens is a value, this is still a guy that is, like wide receiver 30 in consensus rankings. He's still a guy that goes deep down the draft boards, like closer to 70th overall. Like I have him ranked actually in the tier above this, closer to a guy like Devontae Adams, closer to a guy like above a guy like DK Metcalf. So certainly someone that I'm coming away with very often. We're in lockstep on this one. Again, I love a lot of the targets here. To me, I don't even really see like a guy that is straight up a pitfall. I might be like slightly lower on Cortland Sutton than consensus rankings, but not somebody that I'm going to yell at you for taking where he goes. Who's another guy in this range that you really like taking here?
All right. Xavier Worthy is a very fascinating conversation, and you really can't talk about Worthy without talking about Rice. So can we just go off can we go a little different here? Can we go Calvin Ridley? Can we go Calvin Ridley here? Because no one gives a damn about who the first overall pick it was in 2025. It's Cam Ward. It's a massive quarterback upgrade in Tennessee. No one talks about it. But what we saw in preseason week 1, and I understand, Harmon, it's preseason, baby. We don't want to overreact. But Cam Ward's going to throw the ball to Calvin Ridley a lot. And I mean a whole bunch. Mm-hmm. And Calvin Ridley still at this age of his career, he may not be able to win and separate Matt like he was able to early in with his time with the Atlanta Falcons. But when I'm looking at an offense that has Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett, for a team that's probably going to be throwing the ball quite a bit as they trail, like Calvin Ridley at cost is just one of those sneaky guys that is definitely probably set up to outkick his current ADP cost. And he just, even with him being the only guy in this offense that you really feel confident, no one's drafting Lockett or Van Jefferson. He doesn't feel like he goes high enough. I really am digging Calvin Ridley for 2025.
Yeah, I've got a big position on Calvin Ridley here. He's closer to 80th overall in Yahoo ADP. I have him like 50th overall. I'm way higher on Calvin Ridley than consensus ranks. I think, number one, I'm pretty high on Cam Ward, like hitting the NFL field and being good to start. One thing I would disagree with you in that what you said there is like he doesn't separate maybe at the level he did with the Falcons. I think maybe that's true, although last year he took a big step up from his year in Jacksonville, his first year back from a year and a half away from football. In that Jaguar season, he was 71.9% success rate versus man, jumps up to 73.2%, which is still not quite where he was in the early years with the Falcons, but it is an improvement. What is interesting, though, is that year with Jacksonville where he was, anyone who drafted Calvin Ridley knew how volatile he was that year, mostly because he just lined up as the isolated receiver and ran against a bunch of press coverage, and he couldn't really get off of press coverage as well as he did with the Falcons. Career low, 66.7% success rate versus press in reception perception. This past year with the Titans, moves around the formation a little bit more. Remember Brian Callahan, we were talking about with the Bengals earlier, moving Chase around. He moves Ridley around the formation a lot more. He has the second best success rate versus press of his career. So really jumps down from here all the way back up to here. So I liked what I saw out of Ridley in isolation. The fact that he got 1,000 yards in that nasty offense last year, I think that, man, there's a good shot here that we're looking at a big value pick in Calvin Ridley. Like I said, I got him 50th overall, well ahead of his overall ADP.
And he played 17 games too. So that knee and him recovering and returning healthy, and then just his slice of this offense where we are anticipating Cam Ward to improve this passing attack. Calvin Ridley is a value. So I had no clue you were that damn high on him, but I'm very glad to hear that because I think he is still one of those undervalued players that you can trust to be out there for you for fantasy.
We've talked a lot about Rome Odunze, obviously, on this show previously, but let's do it one more time here because I don't mind DJ Moore as a pick this year, man. But when I look at him in consensus rankings all the way up at wide receiver 20 and Rome Odunze all the way down at wide receiver 35, I have those guys like super close in rankings, both as right around 60th overall, a little, maybe just like 61st, somewhere around there. But again, it's if Moore went a little bit later, I'd be interested. And I just think Rome is undervalued based on sort of those efficiency metrics from last year. So one more time for the people who are not initiated just yet, let's talk through Rome Odunze and why we like him as a year 2 breakout.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the skill sets in this offense. We're reading the tea leaves, everything that Ben Johnson is saying about the players that he trusts throughout training camp. Rome Odunze's skill set, his natural skill set as a first-round pick last year, this offense was a mess. It was. And I know the training camp reports are up one day and down one the next, but Ben Johnson is going to significantly improve the positions that he puts his players in to succeed. He's going to be a better offensive coordinator. Is Caleb Williams going to make it happen? We shall see. But I trust that Rome Odunze's skill set in the position as the outside wide receiver in this offense and his ability to play in multiple areas, the other pieces around him. Like, this is the guy that's going to be the primary target earner for Caleb Williams. If I had to double down on it now, it's Rome Odunze. And I love DJ Moore, but at cost, what I don't want to see is my starting X or starting primary wide receiver working out with the running backs and at goal line at tailback. Like I'm not trying to see that. Go play wide receiver and go do wide receiver stuff. You're betting on the talent, you're betting on the capital, and you're betting on this offensive environment change. This doesn't seem as complex as a lot of people seem to make it. At cost, I just can't take more when you can get Rome Odunze so much later in drafts.
Yeah, it's just the per route zealots that have taken over fantasy football. That's what it all is there. But another reason I like this range of wide receivers is because, in addition to these sort of like year 2 breakouts, misunderstood guys, and the guys that we know who they are, right? Like, we know Devonta Smith's good at football. He's playing a really good offense. We know the Cortland Sutton's really good. Bo Nix year 2. We know, the Jameson Williams, good wide receiver. Zay Flowers, good wide receiver, good offense. We like those guys. But it's also the fact that Tetairoa McMillan and Travis Hunter, guys that were top 10 picks in the NFL draft. Travis Hunter plays mostly on offense in preseason. Tetairoa McMillan, man, I don't know if you watched that preseason game at all with Bryce Young. Just the exact type of route tree I'd imagined him running, and which is so perfect for Bryce Young, the intermediate throws there. You know how it is, Ray. Like, people do best ball drafts all summer, which shout out to the sickos that do that. And then, and we may or may not be among them. It's hard to say. But you do best ball drafts all summer. Then you come in, you start checking the Yahoo ADP, and you see these rookies are just going way later than they are with folks who are, paying attention to football all summer. So Travis Hunter, right around 72 overall. Tetairoa McMillan, 80th overall in Yahoo ADP. Do we like those guys as picks in this range? 2 top 10 rookie wide receivers.
I think we do. I absolutely think we do. And that's not to say that it's going to be smooth and rocky from the jump. It may be a little bumpy for them to get going, but by the end of the season, I fully expect both Tetairoa McMillan to establish himself as the primary pass catching option in Carolina, and Travis Hunter to be right there alongside Brian Thomas Jr. as the 1B in that offense. I do think it's still Brian Thomas Jr., but they clearly showed you. Both of these teams in preseason said, hey, this is what we want you to do. Tetairoa McMillan, T-Mac, get down the field. Use your body positioning. Go track the ball. Be on schedule and on time with Bryce Young. And, oh, yeah, Travis Hunter, one of the most dynamic athletes we've seen play football. Let's get you the ball on the first damn play of the game. We're going to screen it to you. We're going to get it to you quickly, allow you to – like, they showed you a glimpse of what they want to see from these young pass catchers. I know it's tough to put a lot of hope in rookies, but at where they're going, in that range, I've got no problem. Yeah. I'm looking at Chris Olave right there, and I want Hunter and McMillan more than I want to deal with what's going on in New Orleans right now. So, yeah, I think that's more than fair and appropriate for both of those guys at the spots that they're in.
Yeah, I think you and I in an earlier episode this offseason talked about, we really like Chris Olave. We like to bounce back. Just wish we'd get some damn clarity at quarterback, obviously, but still a guy I don't mind taking in this range. But I am getting to a point where I might want to move up McMillan and Hunter in the ranks here ahead of a guy like Olave. Who, again, I don't mind Olave where he goes, which is, by the way, 84th overall. So he goes after these guys. I don't mind taking him. That being said, it is the preseason usage for these two players in two key ways in Hunter and McMillan. I'll get your thoughts on these. Hunter, seeing him as a 50-50 outside, inside player, I just think he's going to get so many layups in that role. So when he's on the field, he's going to, which, he might not always be a full-time offensive player, might move week by week. So it's going to be a little tough to predict the weekly, volatility in fantasy. But when he's out there, he's going to get a lot of layup looks. They're going to feed him the football. You mentioned the screens and sort of the quick in-break. You saw that in preseason. And then for McMillan, again, just X receiver day one. And the anticipatory, trust throws that are already there. Sometimes it hit, sometimes it didn't. The anticipatory trust throws that are already there between him and Bryce Young. I just he's gonna be the guy that's he's gonna be the straw that stirs the drink of that offense, whether it works or whether it doesn't.
Can I just ask you one player on this list? My eye cannot go away from this one player, and I think he probably should be a little bit low. Zay Flowers, Matt Harmon. Zay Flowers, where are you at with Zay? Because Zay's been he's been consistent in the NFL, but I'm not sure if he belongs in this tier. I'm not sure if that type of ceiling or outcome or touchdown upside there's something that's just not materializing enough for me to have Zay in this range. If you're telling me one for one, give me Rome Odunze or Zay Flowers, I would take Odunze, and I wouldn't think about it. I'm give me Rome over Zay Flowers. So I'm just curious on your thoughts with Zay Flowers.
So Ray, we're still getting to know each other here in our podcasting relationship. I think so. I'm going to maybe speak out of turn here, and you could tell me if I'm dead ass wrong on this. I think this might say more about you than it says about Zay Flowers. Because I think, to your point about Zay Flowers, don't cross your arms, don't get defensive. I swear it's not an insult. What I mean by that is that Zay Flowers, I just feel like is you take him, you know what you're getting, right? You know what he's going to be. He's going to be right around 1,000 yards, probably somewhere between 4 to 6 touchdowns. I think Flowers, maybe he takes another step, but so far in the NFL, he's just been a very steady player. I was actually just talking about him with James Coe on Reception Perception, just breaking down his metrics. Be kind of maybe took a slight step forward in year 2, but I don't think he's a true number 1 receiver yet. Whereas Rome Odunze presents the mystery box, right? Some of these other guys in this tier present the mystery box. So, like I said, I don't think you're saying anything negative about Zay Flowers. I think it's that the upside of the unknown for some of these other guys in this tier maybe just appeal to you more. So Flowers, who goes earlier than those guys, when you're looking at this tier, if he's going to come off the board first in this group, you just think, okay, well, I'm going to let someone else take Zay, and then I'll wait around and get a guy that I think has maybe a similar floor projection and maybe a higher ceiling projection in these Odunzes, that maybe a little lower floor, but certainly higher ceiling range of outcomes than the guys like Zay Flowers as opposed to Rome Odunze and some of these rookies. So again, I might be totally misreading you here, but tell me how accurate that was.
Nailed it. And it's not, again, I'm not knocking Zay. I think I started off by saying you know what he's going to do. You know what he's going to give you. It's pretty consistent. I just didn't see the type of upside that I can see with an Odunze, a Hunter, and McMillan. So lockstep, totally read it the right way.
This is why we do tiers, because it's okay, well, I miss out on the first name. Don't worry about it. This is a fat tier with more than 10 players. You can get the same sort of proposition a little later on if you wait on it. But speaking of waiting, if you want to wait even past this tier, I still think later down the board, there's a lot of really appealing names, some guys that are right on the cusp of that deep tier. Ray and I are going to break down that group when we come back from this very, very, very short break. All right, we are back. It might not be as deep and as appealing as that range that we just talked through, Ray, but I think this next group of guys that are between 90 to 120 in the overall ADP at Yahoo, still a really appealing range. They're kind of right on the cusp of that deep tier. I'll rattle off the names here. Jerry Jeudy, Jacoby Myers, Jaden Reed, Jordan Addison, Jawan Jennings, Stephon Diggs, Chris Godwin, Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Emeka Egbuka, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Golden, and Khalil Shakir round out. Again, a really appealing, maybe slightly more volatile group of wide receivers. I'll ask you this, Ray, before I get some of your individual targets in this range. Is ageism the way to go in this group? Because we do have a lot of vets, right? We got the Diggs, we got the Deebos, we got the Kupps, names we've known for a while. Is it ageism? Is that the way to go here towards the rookies, the second-year guys, or are there some veteran values?
My eyes immediately go to the rookies. My first, the first rookie on my list, I'm like, the red laser eyes. I'm just like, yes, that player. But then you look around and you look at some of the old guys, right? And you say, you know what? If that knee is okay with Stephon Diggs and we're expecting Drake May to take this step forward, yeah, I could see Stephon Diggs commanding targets and scoring a lot of points for us. Deebo Samuel, listen, I'm not gonna comment on any kind of clips and videos of size and speed, but if he's going to be in this really good offense that's already one of the oldest in the NFL and prioritize in a creative way, yes, Deebo Samuel could be awesome, but yeah, man, I'm going with the young guy. It's Emeka Egbuka. Like, when I'm looking at this list, give me a guy that's going to be involved in an offense with the quarterback that I know is going to throw the ball hell or high water. In Baker Mayfield, we saw how valuable the roles in Tampa Bay were last year with Chris Godwin partially of the season and Mike Evans, despite the games that he missed. Like, this is one of those rookie wide receivers that I do believe inside of a good offense and potentially in a great role right off the bat. I mean, Emeka Egbuka could return a ton of value for us. So I think some of the old veterans, you can't ignore them. But yeah, I want Emeka Egbuka. I think the young guys in this range are very appealing.
Yeah, I really like Stephon Diggs and Jacoby Myers. Actually, when I rank this tier out, I think those two guys are my top two guys here. Just boring veteran values, but I agree with you about Diggs. All the health reports are good. But yeah, man, it is the rookies here that are really interesting. And look, I feel like Emeka Egbuka's come up on this show every single episode somehow, even when we don't mean to bring him up. So I'll let Ray's analysis on that one stand. But I'll talk about Matthew Golden here too, because man, like I don't love this way of analyzing players, Ray, because you're actually not talking about the players and you're talking about them a little bit as like numbers on a spreadsheet. But that being said, when you have the opportunity to take round one rookie wide receivers who go outside the top 115 overall picks because of like fears of ambiguous target trees, but yet they're playing on efficient offenses. They're playing for two teams that were excellent last year in the Bucks and the Packers, in two of the best, just again, offensive ecosystem you can invest into. This is a rare opportunity. You don't get to do that very often. So Matthew Golden, especially with Jaden Reed in the boot right now, although I did share a video that I saw on Twitter of him doing push-ups, one footed with the boot stacked on top. Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you what, Malik Heath, number 18, next to him, Jaden Reed Jaden Reed's form's a lot better. He's got his damn foot in a boot. So maybe some of these Packers, got a little exposed in the push-ups there, but Jaden Reed in the boot, I had these two guys in the same tier, Matthew Golden and Jaden Reed. I just straight up flipped them. At this point, I'd take Matthew Golden, and we got the video right now on YouTube if you're watching, which is just, it's classic. So again, I just straight up would just take Golden ahead of Reed right now because one guy's in a boot, one guy's not. And these are good football players, man. They went in the first round. They were number 2, number 3 in success rate versus zone coverage among the prospects I charted, behind only the great Travis Hunter. So yeah, I mean, take both of them. Shoot, take them both if you can.
Can I just say that I do think that people are, I don't know if undervaluing is the way to talk about Matthew Golden, but I do think there's real world opportunity. And hear me out here, Matt. There was once upon a time where there was a little known wide receiver out of the Ohio State that landed in an offense that significantly needed a wide receiver, and he turned himself into Terry McLaurin. Now, this player in Matthew Golden has much higher draft capital, and I think a little different skill set than Terry McLaurin. But when you look at Green Bay, here's what I can assure you is not going to happen in year 3, Matt. As much as you and I both like Jaden Reed, he's probably not doing anything other than the stuff that he's been doing the past 2 seasons. We know what Romeo Doubs is. Malik Heath, he was dropping passes in the preseason. I think there's a quiet outside chance that we look up at the end of the season, and it's not just Tetero McMillan that has led his team in receiving as a rookie, but Matthew Golden playing on the outside. I think there's a chance that Matthew Golden, this first round pick, ends up as the leading wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and he kind of is just floating under the radar quietly.
I actually really like your Terry McLaurin comparison there, because very similar when McLaurin came into the league, he didn't pop in the spreadsheets, some of the data-based scouting, the models there because of his age, production. Matthew Golden, not the age, but the production profile is a little questionable. So I do think there's some skepticism from people who scout players like that, but they're both like pro-ready route runners. McLaurin was, so I think Golden is as well. And not a perfect full field route runner, does struggle a little bit against man coverage, but like I said, great zone beater, and he rips it downfield, which McLaurin, like from preseason week 1, his rookie season, like, oh damn, that guy can burn downfield, and he's been doing it ever since. He's been doing it ever since. So I like that comparison by you. Another guy that I think, look, we've talked about before when we did the who could be this year's Jackson Smith and Jigba, was Ricky Pearsall, right? We did that episode earlier on this year, Ray, and I mean, my God, the drumbeat has only gotten louder for Ricky Pearsall since then. Every other 49ers receiver is banged up. Kyle Shanahan says, hey, Brandon Ayuk might not play till week 6. So that's not what I'm expecting to really think about Ayuk. Juwan Jennings has got a calf injury. Even Jordan Watkins now has got an injury after flashing as a 4th round rookie. Pearsall's been getting rave reviews from camp. Very similar case where playing behind veterans, dealt with some time, obviously dealt with the gunshot wound, injuries as a rookie, so doesn't pop in the per route metrics, but I loved the film late towards the end of the season for Pearsall. Really liked him as a prospect. Are you still high on Pearsall as we were when we talked earlier this offseason?
I just didn't think we were allowed to talk about him, because I feel like every time we get together, we talk about Ricky Pearsall, but hell yeah, he's on this list, and I feel better. I mean, every day that goes by, and I don't know, listen, we're not here to wish cast injury or hope somebody's not on the field, but the things that are coming out publicly around the pass catchers in San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk may not be ready until week 5, 6, maybe whatever Shanahan said. Juwan Jennings upset that he doesn't have a contract. You just look at this offense. This is a team that they're not built for like 3 years from now. This is a team that needs to go get it right now from a winning, get to the playoff Super Bowl perspective. It's George Kittle and it's Ricky Pearsall. It's Kittle, it's Pearsall, and it's Christian McCaffrey. There's nothing better. You want a consolidated offense in fantasy football. You want to feel very confident that on a week-to-week basis, you've got one of the top 2 primary target earners on the team. And as San Francisco, it stands right now, if you want to put Christian McCaffrey in that bucket, it's McCaffrey, it's Kittle, and it's Pearsall. And you know very well, like I do, Matt, the allocation of wide receiver targets is separate than that. McCaffrey's going to get his regardless. There's a large chunk of target share that's headed Ricky Pearsall's way. This is, whether you loved him or hated him as a prospect, the opportunity in a downfield, good, efficient offense is right there for Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah, no question, man. And like, look, if you like Juwan Jennings, he's still going in this range too, outside the top 100 picks. He's fallen because of the injuries. Here's what I would do. If one 49ers wide receiver goes off the board, that's immediately my signal to take the other, because I think somebody's going to hit from this group. I think it's going to be Pearsall. I've just pushed Ricky Pearsall up and up the rankings, which has come at the expense of Juwan Jennings, who I think is a nice player, but I think higher ceiling is with Ricky Pearsall, the first round pick, a guy who's a better man coverage beater than a guy like Juwan Jennings. So yeah, we're lockstep there. We haven't really touched on any of these sort of delayed gratification guys yet, Ray. We briefly briefly said the name Rashee Rice earlier. We can group him into this discussion too, because he goes higher, but 2 other guys in this tier, Jordan Addison, and I'll say Chris Godwin as well, might not start the season available. Brandon Ayuk, another guy that we just said, is not going to be on the field in week 1, most likely. I don't think Godwin's going to be. We know that Jordan Addison's not going to be, because he's going to be out there on that suspended list. So what do you do with these sort of delayed gratification guys? Are you willing to take them and sort of wait, or are you passing?
I I think I think for me, it depends on the guy that you're talking about. And I just
Mm,
want to say, if I'm drafting a Emeka Egbuka here, then there's no way I'm taking Chris Godwin. And I've already kind of
yeah,
formulated the Egbuka bet by passing on Mike Evans earlier, right? I'm like, I'm not taking Evans
right.
there. I'll wait in Egbuka. I think there's absolutely some value in those guys because as much as I like Emeka Egbuka, if Chris Godwin gets out there, they paid him a whole lot of money and they're probably incentivized to put him on the field as well. Like the NFL team's objective is not the same thing as ours. I want it to be Egbuka. They may feel Godwin is more capable of running opening up the playbook some because of how familiar he is with the offense. So is there some delayed gratification available for Chris Godwin? Absolutely. But if I'm going to take one of those type of guys, Matt, I'd prefer not to take the one coming off significant injury. And although the situation is still a little ambiguous because it's a year one starting quarterback, I loved what I saw from Jordan Addison and JJ McCarthy in that first preseason game. Of his 4 completions, 3 of them went to Jordan Addison. Now, you could say, hey, Ray, that's going to be Justin Jefferson's target share. That's not going to be Addison in that role as JJ McCarthy's primary target earner. It's still a great offensive situation, and we've seen Jordan Addison be successful in a Kevin O'Connell offense. So I expect JJ McCarthy to play well. He probably will play like a rookie at some point in time, but betting on a good, efficient offense with a player like Jordan Addison, even if I got to wait a couple of weeks, I think he is still fine at cost where he is. I'm fine on Jordan Addison, even though I got to wait a little bit.
Yeah, and the thing with that is too, it's and I guess again, if Jaden Reed's going to be hopeful for week one. You know, Matt LaFleur says he's hopeful for week one. I'm hoping for a lot of stuff to happen that it has not happened yet in my life. I know that's for sure. But listen, these guys that are like, if I'm going to take the player who's going to miss time, I better know what I'm getting into when they come back. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what Chris Godwin's going to be because sometimes it's the year after the year, you know, where a guy gets hurt and then the next year. Shoot, with Chris Godwin, last time he got hurt, it was like 2 years after the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
it was like 2 years after the year that he popped back. You know, with Brandon Ayuk, same thing. It might be next year that he rolls back into his usual form. And then with a guy, you know, like Jordan Addison, he's not coming off of an injury, right? He's coming in healthy. He misses time with the suspension. No big deal. Rashee Rice, again, I know he was in the last group, but I do just want to get your thoughts on him because he is somebody that I struggle with a little bit. Look, I actually really, really like the player. I love how he's become this kind of power slot yards after catch weapon. I love what they've like. I know you scouted him at SMU where he was like a perimeter vertical player running, you know, like go routes and stop routes that are tethered to one side of the field. And then his usage is quite literally flipped on its head from that, where now he's just like, it's crazy. Yards after catch, zone coverage. Andy Reid's really good at this stuff. So but again, there's some limitations to his game. He's not really like a full field number one receiver, even if he earns targets like one. So there's that part of it that I'm a little, that's more of like a long-term dynasty take. The only thing I'm caught up on this year, Ray, is because like I said, when you know the guy's coming in healthy, you feel really good about it, even if he's going to be suspended for a little bit. The thing with Rashee Rice is, though, and I know he's practicing, I know he's been out there. I remember this time last year, Ray, when everybody I was like, hey, remember, we're breaking ties in favor of the Houston wide receivers. Remember that Tank Dell is coming off an injury. Oh, yeah, Harmon, have you seen the Instagram videos? Have you seen the Instagram videos? Have you seen the training camp clips? You seen that he's out there practicing, full participant. And then you turn on the film week 1, week 2, week 3. Oh, that guy might be wearing Tank Dell's jersey, but he's not playing like rookie year Tank Dell. Do you have any reservations that Rashee Rice coming off an injury, maybe we're understating that part of the risk here?
Yes. And I feel like I've been criticized for saying it. There was a time in fantasy football where you did not, the narrative was fade those guys year one after those significant injuries. You want them in the following season, not the upcoming season. And yes, I do think that him not being where he was when we last saw him on the field, it absolutely plays into this. And in my opinion, also Xavier Worthy factors into this whole Rashee Rice thing too, right? Hollywood Brown is already injured. Xavier Worthy, the way that he finished out from week 13 to the Super Bowl, there was a fundamental philosophical change in that offense and how they operated and how they used Xavier Worthy. So I'm very curious to see how this offense is deployed. I know what role Worthy is going to have in this offense, and Kansas City really didn't get humming post the Rashee Rice injury until Xavier Worthy, their first round pick, got into the action. So I think there are a couple of things that this is really the ultimate narrative. What narrative do you personally buy and believe? This is all Rashee Rice, and when he gets back, Xavier Worthy is an ancillary piece, or is the first round pick out of Texas that they drafted the guy that we saw pretty much keep them in it for as long as they were in the Super Bowl? Is that the trend moving forward? And both players can be very good in this offense, but there is going to be some downgrade of the high-end outcome for either of those guys if they're both on the field.
The guy that we are not talking enough about in the Chiefs offense because he is not a fantasy relevant player is Josh Simmons, the rookie left tackle, who has just been getting, look, maybe I'm being hypocritical because that guy's coming off a patella tear and he's out there and he's participating, he's getting great reviews. We'll see what it looks like when we get on the film, or when we get on the field. That being said, if he is just a locked-in day-one starter, and he's the guy that he was early in Ohio State's season last year, where he was looking like this guy could be a top 10 type pick left tackle. The Chiefs steal him at 31. I was listening to a great segment with Robert Mays from The Athletic, where he was talking about people in Kansas City will tell you that Patrick Mahomes, unlike some of the quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, they would hate the pressure up the middle. Mahomes believes he has enough pocket mobility to dance around back there and actually deal with interior pressure, but it's the pressure off the edge that will really bother him. And this watching Worthy's season to begin last year, the dude was open on downfield routes, and it was actually the quarterback that missed him. So if Mahomes is and look, this is Patrick Mahomes we're talking about, a guy, the best quarterback in the league. He's right up there. If he's more comfortable in this season because Josh Simmons is locking down that left tackle spot, and somebody, whether it's Taylor or whether it's Moore, who they brought in free agency, is playing better at right tackle, we could be that's how they get back to vertical passing. That's how we hit Xavier Worthy on some of those deep posts. So if you want Xavier Worthy to hit in fantasy this year, you better be crossing those fingers that Josh Simmons is the guy that we think he can be.
And I think he's going to do it, Matt. I'm not saying this is Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying that. But what he brings to this offense helps open up some of the things that unlocked that type of Patrick Mahomes ability that we saw in the past. It's actually not even a hard picture to paint. You don't have to squint hard to see it. This is going to work with Worthy in this offense, especially if they've got some time to give Patrick Mahomes a sling to rock.
All right, so we got a little bit out of the tier there with talking those Chiefs wide receivers. But, man, again, just to review, this is a really good group that I like taking a lot of players from this 90 to 120 overall range. But the wide receiver position doesn't completely dry up there because there are some late-round gems that are available outside the top 120 picks. Ray and I are going to give 4 suggestions each for you to target outside the top 120 picks at wide receiver. We are going to do that right after this quick break. All right, we are back. We are now going to identify some late round gems outside the top 120 overall picks. These are the guys we really like here, and people are not going to be too surprised about my names, but I think Ray has brought a very interesting group of players here. So we'll get into this, Ray. We'll talk through our 4 guys that we love drafting in this region. I want you to start us off with your first name here.
Already, Matt, when we were talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if you just wanted to wait on Mike Evans and you don't want Chris Godwin and maybe you take Matthew Golden instead of Emeka Egbuka, Jalen McMillan is still available late. And Jalen McMillan, despite the fact that we all want Emeka Egbuka to be that guy from this rookie class, he's going to be a part of this offense. He was very good down the stretch of the 2024 season, man. And I just don't think that he's going to be removed from the field. I don't think he's going to be removed from the field, Matt.
No, me neither. And again, he goes really deep in drafts. 128.9 overall is Jalen McMillan. And he has a skill set that when he hits, Ray, he's going to hit pretty big, right? Because he's a vertical guy. I really loved the way they flipped him from like a collegiate sort of pop gun slot receiver to be like a guy that rips it downfield as a flanker. So when you throw McMillan out there, he's going to give you a big week. So I really I love the inclusion of McMillan here. And ultimately, Ray, like I think he might be more of a number 3 receiver long-term, but still a good receiver, and a good receiver on a good offense. Betting on this late, it's not too bad of an idea.
Just one quick thing about this. If Godwin starts off slow, and we know Mike Evans has had a little history with those hamstring issues, we could get to week 16 and week 17 and see Emeka Egbuka and Jalen McMillan.
It's very rare that you get that like wide receiver, where a running back goes down. All right, it's the next guy right off the waiver wire. McMillan's already showed himself to be that kind of rare wide receiver that can be that guy. So I like that part of the analysis there. I will go with a good player. I know a guy that we both really like, Ray, but maybe does not play on a good offense, and that is Josh Downs. Look, I still really like Josh Downs, a guy that is just great separator, great hands. I think the best receiver on the Colts, but we know why he's going this late, right? We know it's a crowded offense. We know about the quarterback questions. It feels constantly like snip, snap in terms of who's going to be the quarterback, right? Oh, minicamp, OTAs, Daniel Jones. Then the Colts are maybe trying to sell, hey, Anthony Richardson having a great camp, gets himself rocked in preseason and is already banged up again. Maybe now Daniel Jones has the edge of the week 1 job. So that's probably how it's going to be all year. But this is just a close your eyes and bet on talent on Josh Downs, which I know both of you and I, we know he can get a lot of targets when he's out there and healthy.
When he's out there and healthy, he's going to command it, and he does really good with the opportunity when he's given it. And you just look at the pieces in the offense. Pierce is going to be the downfield stretcher. He runs a bunch of routes, but he doesn't command a significant target share in the offense. And to a degree, you kind of not in the same Zay Flowers mold, but Michael Pittman is Michael Pittman, right? Like he's consistent. You know what you're going to get out of Michael Pittman. There's just not a lot of upside with Pittman. The upside in this Indianapolis offense, if they can show some semblance of a competent passing game, it's Josh Downs and it's probably rookie tight end Tyler Warren. So I'm in lockstep with you. You kind of know what the other guys are. Josh Downs gives you the upside in this Indianapolis offense.
We typically do want upside here in these late rounds. And typically when we think upside, we think youth. We think upside of the unknown. Your next guy does not have a lot of youth, and we certainly know who this we know who this player is. Give us your next late round gem, Ray.
Come on, man. Y'all know good damn well I'm not coming on the show and we ain't going to talk about an old wide receiver. We got to talk about an old player, man. Keenan Allen just recently signed back to the Los Angeles Chargers. And you know the one thing, Matt, that we have not really done this entire show is try to bake in injuries and talk about players being hurt like there's a long time before the season starts. Lad's dealing with a little something, but I don't think it's really going to impact them once we get to the season. Keenan Allen was brought in for a reason. And when you look at some of his metrics from last season, offense not very good, but Keenan Allen still commanded a decent chunk of that Chicago Bears passing attack. He's competent at what he does, and he's going to be what I call just one of those gnats around Ladd McConkey. And I think it's one of the reasons why I think I moved Lad down, not because he's getting a significant chunk taken away, but he's just that natural, just always around. You're swatting and it won't go away no matter what you do. Keenan Allen was brought in to do some of that. And you know what? He's probably a lot more trusted than Quentin Johnston right now or any of the tight ends. They're down a running back. So he's going to factor into this offense. He's got to be talked about here as one of those later round gems.
I mean, I think he could just, even if he's just like a PPR scam, right, where he's getting a lot of those like layup targets, he's going to be useful here. He was actually 18th among wide receivers in team target share last year, which I don't think many people realize, but he was definitely used a lot. Here's the thing that I think I'm excited about for Keenan Allen this year is that last year with the Bears took 52.5% of his snaps from the slot. His air yards were, kind of right around 9, but like that's per target. When you actually watch him play, he was running a lot of like deep routes up the seam. Not going to be doing that with the Chargers because Ladd McConkey is their intermediate guy. They have vertical players and, Quentin Johnston doesn't really catch the ball down the field in contested situations, but he runs deep routes. They got Trey Harris maybe to be a sacrificial X. They've got Keandre Lambert-Smith, who has made some plays this offseason. He's got a good training camp reviews, Hall of Fame game. We know the deal. He can rip it downfield. So they got downfield guys. But Keenan Allen, I think, will be sort of, again, maybe a compiler, but could be a guy that catches, maybe 60-plus balls here as in the late range of the draft.
And if he does that, he's going to be one of those kind of just fringe, flex-worthy kind of guys hoping for the spike week. But more importantly, that's just going to impact Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, 72 overall, or 72 among wide receivers in consensus rankings. That's probably still slow to catch up. I actually have him at wide receiver 49, so definitely somebody that think you could take in the draft here. Look again, good offense. Okay, this is Justin Herbert,
yes.
And there's no like, I wonder what Keenan Allen looks like with Justin Herbert. They already have a good chemistry. They have a good connection. Again, I will say my next player. Probably doesn't play in a very good offense, but I do know that Rashid Shaheed can play football, okay? And if you're going to tell yourself a positive story about how this works out for some fantasy players in New Orleans, despite the fact that we don't know if it's going to be Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck, and just how good this offense is going to be overall, it is very concentrated. They're going to Olave. They're going to Shaheed. They're going to Alvin Kamara, and that's pretty much it. Like, there's not a lot of other names here. And I really like Chris Olave. You and I talked about it earlier. We think Olave is a good player. We think he's probably a little bit undervalued right now, even if we have like some of the other wide receivers in this range. I'm okay with taking him, but that does not also shy me away from Rashid Shaheed, who goes so much later, 126th overall for wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, man. And a guy that, again, I think is going to give you some big, big weeks. He's sort of pigeonholed in the fantasy community as just a deep ball guy. He can do a little bit more than that.
Absolutely. And I'm not Brandon Cooks, fine player, but I'm not worried about that. I think I'm more worried about the overall Saints offense, but I've talked about Rashid Shaheed as well as one of those guys that in an offense where you're looking at a consolidated target room, I've got no problem at cost. And he does do a lot of the stuff that you want in fantasy. He's good in the short game. He can play deep. I know a lot of people just view him as one thing, but he's a lot more complete than people think. I think Rashid Shaheed just got to stay on the damn field, stay on the field. And even with this inconsistent quarterback play, I do think he can return value, especially at cost. He's way too cheap not to take a shot on him.
Yeah, no question. All right. Next guy on your list, Ray, is a big-time pet favorite of mine and somebody I've been tweeting a lot about since they took the field on preseason on Friday. So give us your analysis on your next guy here.
The dope thing about the receiver position, man, is once the team shows you what they want to do with them, it doesn't really matter what you thought of the prospect coming in. And I'll be honest, I thought Jalen Coker was a little bit of just a cult fad until I started to see how the Carolina Panthers decided to deploy him. And when I'm looking at the usage weeks 13 through 17, it was Adam Thielen, and next up, as far as percent of team usage and fantasy points, it was Jalen Coker. Now, Adam Thielen is there. They did draft Xavier Legette in the first round, and they took Tetairoa McMillan this past year. Matt, I don't want to be too bullish here, but I think there's a real world possibility with just the age, father time. When he knocks on the door, it catches up, and you got to answer. You can't ignore that phone call. You got to open the door. Some point it's going to hit Adam Thielen. I think there's a real world possibility that the number 2 option in Carolina at some point this year in 25 is Jalen Coker. He's talented. His skill set is very conducive. And then Bryce Young taking a step forward and maturing here in year 3. I was wrong. I think I want to draft some more Jalen Coker as a speculative dart. And let's not forget, this was a historically bad defense, so they ain't stopping nobody. It's time to throw the ball, and the Carolina Panthers need to see, Matt, is Bryce Young the type of quarterback that we can commit to long term? They are going to air it out this season. I think Jalen Coker is going to have be a beneficiary of that.
Yeah, straight up, Jalen Coker was better than Xavier Legette as a rookie. Legette I don't think is hopeless. I think there's a right role for him, but Coker's legit, man. It reminds me a lot of like Jacoby Myers, undrafted receiver for the Patriots, undrafted receiver for the Panthers, a guy that can play slot, can play outside too, can beat man coverage. Coker just has he might obviously we haven't seen McMillan yet, but he might have the best hands on the team, because he caught basically everything. He caught contested catches in year 1. I think he's the long-term power slot of this team. The Thielen of it all is interesting, which is why I think for now Coker remains just like number one, he's a great guy to trade for on the cheap in Dynasty. I got him on some benches. Love having him there. The other part of it though, from a redraft standpoint, he's a late best ball pick. He's a waiver wire speed dial because of the Thielen stuff, because I think they kind of cancel each other out. But, I saw Thor Nystrom, who, does great work. He's obviously out there he's out there in Minnesota. He's following that team. Man, the Vikings should trade for Adam Thielen, man. It's been hard to kind of say like which contender could trade for Thielen to get him off this roster, but the Vikings are super light at wide receiver after Jefferson and Addison. They have Ty Felton, who's more of like a creative touch guy they took in the 3rd round. Jalen Naylor is like an okay slot guy, but Addison's going to miss 3 games, man. They don't have a lot of depth there. That would be an interesting spot for Thielen. So again, just pure fan fiction.
Yeah, I like that.
But it's something to
Matt.
Something to think about. All right. Well, I'm just glad you like. I'm just glad you like Jalen Coker, because I love this guy. I talk about him all the time. So another guy I like and talk about all the time is Rashad Bateman. Look, Ray, I know I'm curious about like what the Trinity says about him, because obviously the usage is very up and down, right? But I think he's a good player, guy that was a good prospect, and I think finally last year got back to playing Rashad Bateman football after that like devastating foot injury, man. One where he really struggled to come back from. Explosive player, 40.6 explosive reception rate last year, but was the most efficient receiver in terms of percentage of catches that went for first down and touchdown among receivers with 40-plus catches. And he barely ever played in the slot. I think Hopkins now could take some outside receiver duties away from him. I think from a talent perspective, to get back to the Zay Flowers thing, it's closer than the fantasy rankings think in terms of Bateman and Flowers. Now, I think Flowers gets more layup looks, things of that nature. I'm not saying anything bad about Flowers. I'm just saying Rashad Bateman, very underrated player. So ultimately, again, does he have path to like weekly fantasy production? I'm not so sure about that, but I know this is a good player and I know this is a good offense, and that's what you want to attack in the late rounds.
And that's what you want to attack in the late rounds. And it feels like we talked about Zay Flowers 5 hours ago, right? Like we talked about Zay Flowers 5 hours ago, and then we get down here to Rashad Bateman at the end of the show, and they were 3 points per game difference. Three, not 30, 3. So when you're just talking about at cost, you can give me all of he's not the one, it's this and that. Like he's a good player when they give him opportunity, and we saw that from Shoddy B and splashes and spurts last season with Baltimore. When you got Lamar Jackson who's going to throw the ball, get you 40 doggone touchdowns in a season, yeah, I want pieces of that offense. Rashad Bateman is definitely a late-round flyer worth taking.
All right, last name here for you, Ray Garvin, outside the top 120. And I'll preface before I throw it to your last name. You're going to have to convince me that this guy can play real wide receiver. I know he's awesome in the role that they had him in last year, but I've seen everybody running with the preseason usage for him. You're going to need to convince me that Marvin Mims Jr. can actually play real wide receiver and not just be like a really cool gadget guy.
Listen, Matt. Listen, I'm following the trend here. I mean, we had a couple of at the end of the season, week 13, wide receiver 12, week 17, wide receiver 3. I'm talking about Marvin Mims helped you take home a championship. Justin Jefferson, who? Marvin Mims, 30 points per game, 30 points in week 17. I mean, he brought it home for you, Harmon. Don't clip that. I mean, week 18, if your fantasy playoffs go one more season, he was wide receiver 6. It's really just, I don't know that he is set up to have long-term success in this role, hell, in this offense for the full 17. But when you're looking right now at cost, where Cortland Sutton is going, I know people are excited about Pat Bryant, maybe Troy Franklin. I think you could do a lot worse than Marvin Mims. He's going to run downfield stuff. I think the consistency from him, you probably cannot expect that. I'm not saying this is going to be a consistent option, but man, if there's a whim and a prayer in this play action game with Sean Payton, Marvin Mims is going to run down the field. He's fast. He's explosive. So I don't know how much I can sell you, Matt, but man, he won it for us in week 17, 30 doggone points, followed up by 22. And it looks like he's getting an opportunity to try. He's getting an opportunity to try. All I can ask for is opportunity to have an opportunity.
Yeah, I really like him as a gadget guy because I actually kind of view him as basically like they took, how do you get a kick returner on offense? Because he was a great kick returner as a rookie. I still think has ways to go as a route runner, but throwing him screens, little routes out of the backfield, and when he's running routes, it's all the way down the field, like he's running a damn punt return, So and just scoop under there, track it, and get it, And I think he can do that. So he's going to give you some big weeks. The big weeks came at the end of the season. Whether he can be consistent over the course of the year is whether this usage in the preseason continues. So, look, I don't hate Marvin Mims at all. And as a late-round dart throw, I don't mind it because he's shown the ability to produce in the role that he was asked for last year. And he's tethered to one of the best offensive coaches in the NFL, a guy who really outkicked expectations last year in Bo Nix. So, again, useful player in a good offense, not a bad way to go about it, which is a great way for me to give my last player here, who plays for what might be the worst offense in the league this year, which is Cedric Tillman. And we've talked Tillman before. I've talked Tillman a lot on the show. My last thing here that I'll just say, I mentioned this earlier in the offseason, the production, the targets, the usage was very close between Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy after Amari Cooper got traded and before Cedric Tillman left with concussions. But the ADP is not close at all, right? Jeudy goes so much earlier. We talked about it in the previous tier. Cedric Tillman doesn't even get drafted in Yahoo leagues right now. Again, it's a late round pick. If it doesn't work out, you cut him, you move on. You never think about Cedric Tillman again in your life. But as the final pick at your wide receiver bench spot, I think he's actually got a shot to be a little bit closer to Jerry Jeudy. So I'm not saying Cedric Tillman's the next superstar wide receiver, but I do think he's a nice late round pick, Ray.
I honestly have nothing negative to say about it. At cost, could be the wide receiver 2, if not more. If something happens to Jerry Jeudy, we've seen him be good before. I like Cedric Tillman. I've got nothing bad to say about this pick.
Well, I've got great things to say about this show. Hell of a job, Ray. We ran through the entire wide receiver board. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see our group of guys here that we talked through the tiers and how things flow right now in Yahoo ADP. Ray, appreciate the hell out of you, buddy. Tell the people about the piece you just wrote on Yahoo and everything else you've got working on right now.
Yeah, appreciate you. Love being on the show. Dropped the piece about some risky players to gamble on here in 2025. Got some tight end stuff upcoming over here on Yahoo. Follow me on socials for more content. Appreciate all y'all, man. This is a great show. I love the comments. Please comment below. Let us know what you think about these players. It's been a good one, Matt.
Absolutely. Please tell me what an idiot I am for picking players from the Colts, Saints, and Browns for late round gems. How could that possibly go wrong? That might go wrong, but what will go right is if you stick with us here on Yahoo for our 28 days of fantasy. A reminder, we are celebrating 28 years of Yahoo Fantasy with 28 days of fantasy promo. Today's announcement, we are expanding our public prize leagues. New $2,500 entry fee tier with $12,500 to first place. That sounds pretty nice. Public prize leagues are now available for new prestige leagues. Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine leagues are now also prize eligible. Man, just a ton of great stuff coming out right now. You can play yahoo.com/fantasy. Go there for more. That is going to do it for today's show. Position preview week rolls on. with the running backs and Justin Boone on tomorrow's episode. That is going to be live at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. So subscribe to our new channel if you're watching us here. Appreciate the hell out of you. Subscribe. Don't leave the video without subscribing. Leave a comment down below on your thoughts on this episode. And if not, just keep it moving. On Wednesday, we'll be back. Until then, we are out.